Tom, one of the things that I'm very interested in is the Jewish Home for the Elderly, and seeing it as can be a tax relief for our citizens. And I'm just curious, it's a regional cooperation, and how do you see, how can we develop more regional cooperation, and how can the state level work with the local level to provide more of this development?
Well, that's a good question, and here's what I'd say. I would say this, that the way we start getting more regional cooperation is by having a success with this regional cooperation. Once people feel comfortable with success and feel good that they can trust one another, and you have a win-win-win situation, I think that's how you get more regional cooperation and more regional projects flowing through here. There's certain things that Monroe has that Bridgeport doesn't. There's certain things that Monroe has that Trumbull doesn't, and vice versa. There's things that Trumbull and Bridgeport have that Monroe doesn't. So, in order to help maximize our ability to smartly develop our available land, we've got to work together in order to make those things happen. I think from a state level, what I think a state representative can really do is to start looking at proposed changes in the legislation that make regionalism and regional economic development something that becomes more of a reality by sticking some carrots out there.
Regional incentive.
Regional incentive grants, etc.
And also the
some carrots out there.
Regional incentive.
Regional incentive grants, etc.
And also the cooperation between the towns. I work with you in CCM, and a lot of the efforts that happen are because towns are getting together and talking about what they need and the legislation they need to go after. And I know regional cooperation has been one of them. Do you see incentive grants as being just part of one way we can get together and cooperate?
I think that's one way, but I think there's a more common denominator that every town has, whether you're Bridgeport or Monroe or let's think of another small town, Ellington or someplace like that. And here's the problem you have. No matter how much your grand list rises, your grand list is probably going to rise 1% or under. That still leaves you with a 2, 3, 4% expense gap. And you have to figure out smart ways of doing that. So I think to regionally incent governments, whether it's on economic development or on cost savings. For example, one of the things I know I've talked about has been, if you look in business and you look in government, if you look in business, one of the things businesses did to kind of stretch their dollars was to have overall network platforms in their businesses. Why should a network platform in Trumbull be different than a network platform in Monroe, than a network platform in Shelton, than a network platform in
We don't need
Newtown?
to reinvent the wheel 169 times. We need to start sharing ideas and cooperating in a way that, because property tax problems aren't just unique to Monroe or Newtown. Everybody's having those types of problems. And the regional incentives to grow the economic development base are definitely one way, and also increasing state aid to education. And Connecticut has promised for economic development.
But I think we're a smart state rep or state senator, like you could be, really would help is by not only setting up the grant, but sit down and talking to people and getting common interests and needs that they have together. And I think you can do this one of two ways, either on the cost reduction side or on the project development side. And I think you got to look at both ends of that spectrum, because every town has costs that they could shed if they did something a little bit more regionally. And I think you got to start small.